So how do we take that next step? How do we make their worst fears a reality? And what exactly are they afraid that we're going to do? I'm going to tell you exactly what they're afraid we're going to do. They're afraid we're going to make elections about votes, not about money. Because when you're trying to run an election, a campaign based on money, what you have to do is you have to find somebody with money. You have to find a system that's going to help that person get some more money. And then you have to couch whatever bill that is in some kind of poetic rhetoric. When you make elections about votes, you just need to tell people that you're going to do what's beneficial to everybody, and then you need to do it. And that part's not hard. I mean, it's hard to do it when you're running against multi-million-dollar campaigns, but it's not intrinsically complicated to do. I mean, everybody wants essentially the same things in most areas, with the exception of certain very specific special interest groups. Most people agree on most issues. So how do we take that thing and make it a reality? Well, first, we have to work on our methods of persuasion. As a party, as a group, whether you're a libertarian or just a liberty-minded individual, we have got to work on our methods of persuasion. One of the first things that needs to happen is this. We've got to use persuasion. We have to use arguments that people can follow, that people can understand. I was at Students for Liberty talking about marijuana policy. And I was saying that, I don't know that this prohibition argument is really working on that many people, because people associate prohibition with history class, and they associate history class with stuff they don't care about. And the response to that, that I got from a lot of people, is that, I think that, one of the students told me, I really think that most people understand that when you reduce the supply, when you reduce the legal supply, it requires that you set up an illegal infrastructure. And when you set up that illegal infrastructure, that's going to have a byproduct of several other crimes. Whereas if you get rid of that restriction on the legal supply, that's no longer an issue. And I was like, well, yeah, you might understand that, but most people don't understand that. If you want to talk about guns, and you want to talk about something complex, like the fact that in England there are more hot burglaries, which means that there's a burglary that happens when the person's at home as opposed to burglary happening when someone's not there, and that's how it's directly tied to England's very strict gun laws, you can do that, but you're going to lose people. But if you say instead, you can ask somebody, what do you think is the most common cause of gun death? And most people say, I don't know, accidents maybe, and other people say homicides. And when they find out that the vast majority of gun deaths are actually suicides, it really makes them stop for a second. It makes them think. It makes them realize that maybe everything they've been told isn't completely right. The second thing that we need to do, though, and this is a much more important thing that we need to do, and I think it's something that for the most part, libertarians and liberty-minded individuals have been doing. But there are certain exceptions to this, which I'm going to talk about, is we need to avoid using the kind of dirty tactics that the other parties use. And I know that a lot of you are saying, well, they're doing it and it's worked for them and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure it has, but the point is, the point of the Libertarian Party, the whole point of the Liberty Movement is to create something better. We don't need to lie because we're telling the truth. And there's big lies and there's subtle lies. Now, I know a lot of you guys have taken the world's smallest political quiz. And I've taken it, and like many of you, I came up as 100% libertarian, 100% social, 100% conservative. 100% on the economic side. But the way that chart is done is, on one side, is a great idea, a nice small political quiz. But David Nolan, the creator of that chart, is an MIT graduate. Why he chose to take the axes, the x and the y axis, turn it diagonal, make the x-axis go from social to conservative, but make the y-axis go from from the liberal to conservative, but to make the y-axis go from conservative to liberal. To me, that is very obvious and very blatant, subtle manipulation. And I think that as a party, we don't need to manipulate. We need to unmanipulate. We need to tell the truth, and we need to tell it without any kind of slant. Because we don't need to slant what we're saying. What we're saying is something that everybody basically agrees with anyway. Why should we slant it? The idea, of course, is that when you take the Nolan chart test, if you're a libertarian, you come up right at the top, and it's better to be at the top than at the outer extreme or at the left top or something like that. So the goal, I understand, but the methodology, to me, is something that we could definitely do better with.